We're asking, what's the matter? No, seriously, what's matter?
Matter is what makes everything. Matter is made of tiny particles called molecules that they vibrate and give objects properties. For example, the molecules in water allow it to take the shape of its container.
And that is one of the 5 statements of the particle model of matter, PMOM for short. The fact that matter is made up of tiny invisible particles. But how do you know how it works without seeing it? Well, now you can see it.
See how the particles vibrate. This allows them to transfer energy from one another. This is also one of the 5 statements of STEM. The fact that particles are always moving. When they bump into each other, they transfer energy from one to the other, which is how heat will start making an object near it hot.
The particles need energy to cross the gaps between them. Oh wait, another statement of STEM. This statement states that particles have tiny invisible spaces between them. But back to my original question, how do they cross the gaps? Well, they get it from convection, or radiation.
Conduction is when particles bump into each other and transfer energy in a solid, like I was saying before. One of the things that uses conduction are electricity wires.
Convection is when a heat source, a candle for us, heats the air around it. This is convection. Then the hot air rises, and because nature doesn't like empty spaces, it's like, we gotta do something about this, and the cold air takes its place. Then the process repeats. This is a convection current.
Lastly, radiation. Radiation is when microwaves get produced and get sent into particles. Then they get energized and heat up something that uses microwaves, but also the sun.
But with all this energy, what happens to particles? Well, we need to get in the real word for this one. Another one of the 5 statements of PMO is the fact that particles are attracted to each other. We can visualize this with 2 blocks, as you see right here. When I get the blocks close to each other, boom, they stick together. And that's because the energy in particles acts like magnets, pulling them together and also pulling them apart.
But what are particles making up? Sometimes it's special because certain materials have unique composition, which brings us to our last statement, PMO. Particles and pure substance are identical.
Because they are pure substances, they are more smooth than if they aren't a pure substance. But what are these particles making up for us in the real world? They're making up 3 states of matter. Hello.
These particles make up solid, liquids, and gas. They can change by adding or moving energy. Let's say you want to turn ice into water. So you put it in a pan, the pan heats the ice and it turns into water. The reason that the ice is because it gained heat energy from the hot pan and the particles started to move faster and then they broke into water molecules because they were moving faster than it is usual for ice.
If you want to go the opposite way, you freeze substances. Let's say you need some ice cream for a drink. You put this into the freezer for a few hours and it is ice now. The reason is that the coldness of the freezer took away the energy from the water and the molecules started to slow down. Then they froze into ice. But all this requires one thing, kinetic energy. So we need to go in the studio for this one.
Kinetic energy is the energy of movement. That includes particles. So when you heat something up, you add kinetic energy, and when you cool something down, you take away some of that energy. That means kinetic energy is heat, right? Almost.
Here is a particle. Adding kinetic energy makes the particle move faster. Adding kinetic energy also increases thermal energy, which is the total kinetic energy in a substance. That means an iceberg can have more thermal energy than a boiling kettle because there are more particles in an iceberg. Temperature is what we normally think of when you hear it's cold or hot outside. This is the average kinetic energy in a substance. All these things have heat, which is the energy that travels from hot substances to cold substances.
Now that we have talked about everything you need to know about matter, you tell us.
What's the matter?
Enough with the dad jokes.